Hello everyone. Today we are talking about the Millennium Development Goals called MDGs and the subsequent Sustainable Development Goals called SDGs. In the UGC Net Paper 1, in subsection 10, this Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals are the first part or the first topic. Now, the United Nations Millennium Declaration was signed in September 2000. It commits world leaders to combat poverty, hunger, disease, illiteracy, environmental degradation, and discrimination against women. The Millennium Development Goals have been derived from this United Nations Millennium Declaration. The Summit Declaration cited freedom, equality of individuals and that of nations, solidarity, tolerance, respect for nature, and shared responsibilities as the 6 values fundamental to international relations for the 21st century. The General Assembly of the United Nations on 8th September 2000 adopted the following as per their resolution 55/2. 1. Values and principles: peace, security and disarmament, development and poverty eradication, protecting our common environment, human rights, democracy and good governance, protecting the vulnerable, meeting the special needs of Africa, strengthening the United Nations. Disarmament here means having less weapons of war. Poverty eradication means getting rid of poverty, seeing that people are not so poor anymore. Protecting our common environment will mean sustainable development, and good governance will mean transparency in governance. Let us go on to the next slide. The Millennium Development Goals are these: eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, because we see some extreme poverty in some countries. Second, achieve universal primary education. Education is a basic human right of all children and we must provide this for them. Promote gender equality and empower women. Reduce child mortality. Infant death rates should come down. It is a very sad thing when children pass away. Improve maternal health, especially after delivery of the babies. Combat HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases. Ensure environmental sustainability. Develop a global partnership for development. Now, the Millennium Development Goals were not fully successful. In 2000, the Millennium Declaration identified the fundamental values which we talked about earlier, essential to international relations. The Millennium Development Goals set targets for realizing these values around the world by the year 2015 and served as the focus for the work of the United Nations throughout the period of 2000 to 2015, a period of 15 years. That is, eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Now, when we do an analysis of why all the Millennium Development Goals, though they were excellent in formulation were not completely successfully developed or implemented. It is said that the fundamental analysis of the basic causes of global poverty were not looked into or researched into well. Secondly, there is a huge regional disparity in wealth, employment, infrastructure, food security, and education within the global south. Global south means the southern hemisphere of the earth, largely in Africa, Asia, and countries of Latin America. And also there is a disparity between the north and the south, global north and the global south. So when the disparity was so huge, just closing up this gap was not very easy. Now, if we look into the United Nations website, most of my slides, materials for the slides, I acknowledge that I have taken from the website of the United Nations and their research website. So, these are the development decades that we see. 1960 to 1970 was the first development decade. 1971 to 1980 was the second development decade. Decade means 10 years, as you are aware. 1981 to 1990 was the third development decade. 1991 to 1999, we call them the Human Development Reports. And the concentration of the United Nations was on human development. That is why it is the Human Development Reports. The year 2000 to 2015 was the Millennium Development Goals that we are talking about now. And then from 2016 to 2030, the United Nations has set up as a sequel to the Millennium Development Goals, currently Sustainable Development Goals. If we look into whether the Millennium Development Goals were successful, there has been considerable improvement, which we see like this. Globally, the number of deaths of children under 5 years of age that fell from 12.7 million in 1990 to 6.3 million to 2013. The infant mortality rate, as you can see, has come down or reduced. In developing countries, the percentage of underweight children under 5 years old dropped from 28% to 17% from 1990 to 2013, which means there has been a reasonable fulfillment of poverty and hunger, that is, food security has increased. Globally, new HIV infections declined by 38% between 2001 and 2013. Existing cases of tuberculosis are declining, with deaths among HIV negative TB cases. In 2010, the world met the United Nations Millennium Development Goals target on access to safe drinking water, which means whatever goals they had as to providing the world with the good drinking water, the goals were achieved. This was measured by the proxy indicator of access, meaning this means people wherever there hasn't been the availability of drinking water, they have had access to safe drinking water. So the proxy indicator of access to improved drinking water sources gave this the indicator was that such is the indicator, and we know that the goal has been achieved. But more needs to be done to achieve the sanitation target. In 2013, there was a meeting where the UN General Assembly hosted a special event to follow up on the efforts towards achieving the MDGs. So, Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, presented a report. So, based on this report, world leaders renewed their commitment to meet the Millennium Development Goals targets and agreed to hold a high-level summit in September 2015 to adopt a new set of goals built upon the achievements of the Millennium Development Goals. So accordingly, see, in this there was a certain mentionable commitments of world leaders, and one of that is they focused on concrete examples of scaling up success and identifying further opportunities for development, areas for development probably. Additional commitments to boost the Millennium Development Growth Achievement were announced, bringing the total of money committed to more than $2.5 billion. Now, we have to also take cognizance of what is the Brundtland Report of 1987, which says, development which meets the needs of current generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This is obviously what we define as sustainability. So we have the goals are like this: sustainable world economic growth, the improvement of the quality of this growth by addressing the development of cities, energy supply, food security, and the preservation of species and ecosystems. Now, species means, flora and fauna, animals, birds, and the plants. Ecosystems is a combination of plants, flora and fauna, like how we coexist with nature. This is a better way to say it. Third, caring for the environment as a fundamental part in the decision-making process of institutions, organizations, and companies. Excuse me. This means that when you look at doing buildings in the name of development, see that you do not harm the existing environment and nature. The Brundtland Report, entitled Our Common Future, is used as a reference guide by organizations and companies. Definite, realizable actions can be established so that jointly the world becomes proactively involved. What do you mean by proactively? It's not a reaction to some event that has happened. Anticipating that an event will happen, you do something to prevent that event. This is called proactivity. So, define realizable actions can be definite realizable actions can be established, actions or targets that can be achieved so that the world jointly becomes proactively involved in environmental and sustainable development issues. Now, we come to the Sustainable Development Goals, which the United Nations have said that it is not the work of the United Nations, it is the work of all the people in the world, and we have to somehow volunteer and give a commitment to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are the period of achievement, hopefully, is between 2016 and 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. They address the global challenges we face, including poverty, equality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. So we have 17 goals excuse me, that are all interconnected, and in order to leave no one, no person, no individual, no country behind, it is important that we achieve them all by 2030 jointly. The UN General Assembly in September 2015 adopted a global development vision called Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The 2030 Agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity, the 3 Ps. As part of this agenda, 17 new Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets to stimulate global action over the next 15 years, that is 2016 to 2030, on issues that are critical to the humanity survival, existence and survival, and the planet have been identified by the global community. The concept of the Sustainable Development Goals was born at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development in 2012. Now, these are the 17 sustainable goals. No poverty anywhere in the world, zero hunger, meaning food security for all, good health and well-being. You can also look into the WHO website for this. Quality education, basically education for all, gender equality and empowerment of women, clean water and sanitation, that is access to good and clean drinking water, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities between individuals and countries in terms of poverty eradication and income, sustainable cities and economies, that is when you do development of cities, take care of nature. Economies also, when you build up your economy, build it up so that nature has always sustained. Responsible consumption and production. This is a very nice concept. Whatever you consume, consume responsibly. Climate action. Action about the climate because the global warming is happening. Life below water. You're taking care of aqua, the fishes and whatever is underwater. Life on land, that is the ecosystems, flora and fauna. Peace, justice and strong institutions that maintain and care for peace and justice. And finally, world partnership for the achievement of the above goals. We will now talk about the Indian initiatives as regards the Sustainable Development Goals. In the UN Summit of September 2015, the Prime Minister of India pledged its commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs officially came into force from 1st January 2016. Niti Aayog in India has been assigned the role of developing national indicators. That is, these national indicators are metrics or measurement units of measurement that tell us whether the sustainable development goals have been achieved, whether the targets have been reached. So Niti Aayog will not only set up national indicators, maybe indices, they will oversee the implementation of the achievement of these goals by different ministries of the Government of India, and they will also coordinate with the different states for the achievement and development of the targets as said in the Sustainable Development Goals. The new agenda goes beyond the traditional, like people, planet, that is what we talked about, the 3 P's, the 3 dimensions, and now it is 5 dimensions. The first one is people, to end poverty and hunger in all their forms and dimensions. All about people. Second, planet, to protect the planet from degradation. Third, prosperity, ensure that all human beings can enjoy prosperous and fulfilling lives. Fourth, peace, foster peaceful, just and inclusive societies which are free from fear and violence. And fifth is partnership, mobilize the means required to implement this agenda through a revitalized global partnership with the participation of all countries, all stakeholders, and all people. So you see some new things in the new agenda. The 3 P's of people, planet have become people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. And secondly, instead of asking the world leaders and the governments to take part, the United Nations is now asking that each individual all over the world contribute and commit to the development and achievement of the sustainable development growths in our own way. Now we have Sustainable Development Growth India Index 23-24, the 4th edition of our country's principal tool. It is an index for measuring whether the Sustainable Development Goals have been achieved in our country. So it is called SDG India Index 23-24 and it is the 4th edition. So it is for measuring national and subnational, that is national level and state level, regional level, subnational progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, and it has been released by the Niti Aayog. Recently, the index was launched by the chairperson, vice chairperson of Niti Aayog, and we have the CEO of Niti Aayog there, and there is a UN resident coordinator in India, senior advisor Niti Aayog, and deputy resident representative of UNDP. In the presence of all these people, the SDG India Index 23-24 has been released recently. Now, all over the world, are people doing something about the achievement towards the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals? Yes. We talked about India and what India is doing. Now, the UK government is committed to the delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals and has embedded each goal in the planning action of each government department. So, a list of commitments is there on their website. Then, what about private people? Like we talked about a government. Well, the international company Lego engages on Sustainable Development Growth 4. They concentrate on quality education for all. So, in 2018, they had a series of worldwide events, etc. There is a instruction booklet and all that. You can take a look. The television channel Discovery Channel, established a meaningful partnership with the charity organization Oceana for the past few years to protect sharks from the cruel fin trade that affects up to 73 million sharks per year. Their efforts aim to tackle the 14th Sustainable Development Goal, life below water. Sharks are fish and they live below water. So these are three examples of organizations who are really trying to implement sustainable development goals. Now, all the best and God's blessings to all of you. Kindly look at all the contents I have given in my slides. I am hoping and I'm sure you will be able to answer any type of multiple choice questions that come in net if you take a look at the complete slides that I have given here. I will say bye now and I will come again with more videos on the UGC NET paper 1. All the best. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.